This is the lesson for GCO5, draw transformed figures and describe a sequence of transformations. Just going to warn you that this is one of the longer evaluations that you will have had so far. The good news is it's all one standard. It's not going to be mixed up in different standards. So the first part is you are going to have to describe how two figures are related. So this is what we're going to do for this one. Okay, so let's say that we have a, whatever you want to draw. I'm going to draw a star. And now the star is over here. What happened to get from this star to that star?
It was transformed.
What was it called?
Translated.
So that's translated. Now let's say I had the star like this, and then now it's like this. How did it get from, you can't tell the difference.
It's translated.
I'll just go like this. Yeah, it was rotated. Rotation. And then I'm gonna have to do something else. Let's say that I have a heart.
Can we use a triangle for the...
You can use whatever you want to, but just make sure that you can see it like this. I have a heart like this, and now I have a heart like this. And so how are those two related?
That's
Reflection.
symmetrical. That's symmetry or reflected. But I was just saying on the rotation, you could fill in the top.
Yeah, maybe I could have done like this and like that, maybe.
So you know which
Something like that. Okay. We have a reflection. And okay, so those are main things. Like you're gonna have two figures and you're gonna have to figure out how they're related. But just basically you'll have to describe how you get from one to the other, and then it's gonna get more complicated than that. The other thing it's going to do in this lesson for these evaluations is they're going to say the transformation. They're going to say two things. So they might say, move it 5 to the right and then reflect it. Or they might say, after you do this thing, what's the, like it'll give you, so maybe it gave you the star. Let me go back to here. Maybe it gave you the star and it had this point here. And then it said to move it down and to the right, and it'll say, what is the new point right there? Like, what is that location? It'll do things like that. So you're describing the transformation. So you'll have to know how to graph. And it'll have you draw an entire thing. So it'll give you a picture like this, and it will tell you, now move that 1 up and 6 to the right. So you'd have to move it 1 up and 6 to the right and draw the new thing. Does that make sense, what you're going to have to do? So then, oh, that's pretty good. Reflections, you'll have to do translations, you'll do more reflections. Whoa, okay, and then let's just go over some basic things. If we reflect, let's do some translations. You're just moving each X and each Y. So let me just put it in general terms. Translation. So for translations, if we had our X and Y and we translated it, then the translation, our translation was H to the right and K up. Then we would do X plus H, because you'd add all of them, like H, add it onto all the X's. And then all the Y's, you would just add K to it, and then you can get the new figure. My personal preference is to do it like this. Like I like to write out the points. So for example, if I had the point 1, 2, and my translation was 3 left and 2 down, then my new point would be, So I can show the work like going like this. I could do 1 minus 3, since it was left, I subtract. And then 2 down would be 2 minus 2. So my new point would really be negative 2, because 1 minus 3 is negative 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So I prefer doing it like that and then graphing those points and connecting them, but it's completely up to you how you want to do it. So that's for translations. Then we have rotations. And with the rotations, so we start out with X, Y, and then we're going to have 3 types, and this is only if it's about the origin. If it's across the origin, and this is kind of recap of what you learned last year in Math 8, and if you don't remember it, it's okay. So if you went, like this is what's going to happen to it if you moved it 90 degrees, rotated it 90 degrees clockwise. I'm going to do CW for clockwise. So if you had whatever the points were on your figure and you were supposed to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, only if it's with the origin and only if it's 90 degrees clockwise, then instead you're going to switch the X and the Y and make the X opposite of whatever it was. So for example, if I had the point 3, 4, and I rotated it 90 degrees about the origin, it would be 4, negative 3. Or if it was,
Wait. It's 3, 4, and that's 4, negative 3.
yeah, so if you had a point that was at 3, 4, and that point was rotated 90 degrees clockwise around the origin.
But why is the 3 negative with 3 and 4?
Because this is what happens to them. I can show you the picture. Would that help? Okay, let me just quick, because I think it would help. So if we had that point, so 3, 4, it's up here, and then here's the origin, right? And then I rotated it 90 degrees, which is just a right angle. So if I do it right angle like that, then the new point is going to be right here, which is the point 4. So there's like the 90 degrees, right? So it turned it 90 degrees clockwise. So now this point is at 4, negative 3. Does that make more sense? Okay, so this is just the rules that they follow. Somebody else did all this work and they're like, okay, well, here's the rule for it. Yeah.
What if they flipped it again? How the numbers changed?
Okay, so then if they turned it another 90 degrees, in other words, if they turned it 180 degrees, for example, then what you would do for that is instead, so I'm just going to put like a thing between there. So instead what the difference would be is it would just be the opposite of X and the opposite of Y.
So negative X, negative.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily negative X, negative Y, because if X was negative in the first place, then you're just going to do the opposite of a negative.
Wait, does it go YX again if you still do a 90?
Yeah, like this is, Y-X is always the first point. So these things are just what happens to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like if it goes 180, then it's and it's XY, then it's negative.
Just negative X and negative Y. So then for this one, it would be negative 3 and negative 4. So for this one, let me just show you what that, so 180, would you guys agree that's a straight line? So it starts up here and then it's going to go down here and it would be, where are we at? So there's the rest of that. Gotta zoom out. And so for 3, so it would be right here. So that's the point, negative 3, negative 4, right? So that would be the 180 degrees. And that's clockwise. And the cool thing is this is clockwise or counterclockwise.